Are you having trouble with your seasoning in your cast iron, flaking, spotting? You better stick around because I have got some of the best tips to fix spotting and flaking and the use and care of that lovable cast iron. Hey, thank y'all for stopping by the kitchen. Who am I? My name is Kent Rollins, or as some of y'all might know me, Cowboy Kent Rollins. We talk about grilling, we talk about cast iron, we talk about food, we give you a little humor, but today what are we talking about? Periodic maintenance on cast iron. Now, anything we talk about, product or otherwise, will be in the description below the video. Before we get started on how to periodically take care of this cast iron, in our last video, and Shan will have a link right up yonder called Hush Puppies. But I want to thank y'all. We did a little tribute to Frank the Wonder Dog, and whoo-wee, how we love him, how we miss him. But folks, y'all help us get through this time of grieving. All the heartfelt, warm condolences that y'all sent to me, and I answered every comment. I did, and I thank you so much for them. And when y'all said we love you, well folks, I want to tell you, we love you too. It meant a lot to us, so let's get back to talking about how do we take care of this cast iron. How do I clean the outside of this, or when do I need to clean it? Well folks, if you're cooking inside, it's not quite as bad as cooking outside, especially if you're over an open fire or you're cooking with propane that maybe hadn't got a good regulator on that burner. You're going to get some soot, you're going to get some buildup, and periodically that needs to come off. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, if Shan will zoom in here, you can see that this old Wagnerware has got a little buildup. To get that done, folks, whoa, it ain't like Bertha. You got to turn a knob and it's got to be the right one. We got to get this hot first because it's going to clean easier as it gets hotter. Now there's different methods you can use, but the number one thing I ain't going to do, y'all know it, I ain't going to spray that outside edge with no oven cleaner. So I'm going to use either a putty knife, some really rough grit sandpaper. This has got to be hot, folks, for this to take place. Now, that handle, I judge it by that way too. How long can you hang on to it? Not long, I promise you. Now you can put this on a cutting board, you can put it anywhere you want, but let's see if some of that'll scrape off. And it is turning some of that loose. Get over here where this side was. This works pretty well too with some steel wool, but let me tell you something. Steel wool's awful close to your fingers, close to a hot pan. It's better you do this with a putty knife or a wire brush. But if you'll do this periodically, you won't have a lot of buildup on your skillet anywhere. But the best way to prevent this, folks, always clean that outside every time you use it. Give them a little scrubbing with a soft scrubber or something with a bristle brush to get some of that to turn loose. We got her all cleaned off really well. We're going to have to re-season, and when I re-season, I'm just going to use any cheap old vegetable oil for the outside of this. How often do I do this? If there gets to be a lot of residue like this and you can see when you're scraping it, it changes color, you need to do this every time. But if it's just cleaning the outside with hot water and you're just washing all this off, make sure it's good and hot and dry. Do this twice a week. Just make sure that you get this clean, hot, and seasoned before you ever get through using it. Now folks, we talked about that soot buildup on the outside, and if you're cooking outside over a lot of open campfires that make a lot of smoke, a lot of soot, pine is probably one of the worst ones. So to prevent that, a lot of times if I'm out there on a fire, just open fire, I take any kind of cooking spray, oil, anything, just give it a light coating all the way. When you set it over there and go to cooking, sure, you're going to see a little smoke come off of that when you put it back on there, but also it's going to make it easier to clean up. Most of the time you can just take that rascal, take it over to some hot water, little scrub brush, whew, clean as a whistle. Get to noticing that you've got your cast iron skillet that maybe you started 2 or 3 weeks ago, or maybe it's been 6 months, and you go and look at it one day and you think to yourself, something don't look right in there. Is your seasoning flaking when you can see it in your food or something out? So there's 2 types of problems here that's got this flaking or your seasoning coming off. One is maybe it's not filled in with your seasoning all the way across to get you that smooth, glossy finish, or a lot of it you see on flaking is not only on the bottom of this, but big pieces missing from the sides of your skillet. Now, this can be caused by really 3 things. Number one, let me get it over here. Number one of these tools here. This is a husband adjuster, not to be ever used in cast iron to take it and... No. Sure, I serve with a metal spatula, maybe picking something up, or a metal spoon, but I ain't scraping the bottom of that oven or I ain't raking it around in there to try to clean something on there that's stuck. Maybe you used the wrong oil and you got this way too hot at some time or another and burnt some of this off. Maybe another reason was you hadn't had this long, your seasoning wasn't built up as good as it might have ought to been, and what did you cook in it? A barbecue sauce based, an acid based of any kind. It's hard on seasoning. People say you can't cook acidic foods in cast iron. You can, folks, and yes, it is hard on cast iron, but you got to remember to re-season every time. And sometimes when it gets to the point to where you think you got flaking going on, and if it's really bad, I want you to take a little piece of sandpaper or some coarse salt, rub it around there, get all that loose seasoning. I ain't wanting you to get back down to bare metal. I just want that is not sticking to that cast iron wheel to come off there. Then we're going to start that process that is going to fix it. So, make sure it is cleaned really well before you start this next process. Make sure there is no residue, no flaking left in here that shows up on this rag anywhere. If Shan'll see here with the oven, it is preheated to 350 degrees. I like to start out, if I'm building up seasoning from brand new or going back and what I'd call a patch job, grapeseed, flaxseed, or avocado oil. They're all high temp. They all adhere to cast iron well. We got this warm. Not like we had that little one when we was cleaning it smoking hot. I want it warm enough that that oil's going to spread well. I'm never going to season a cold piece of cast iron. So, I'm going to turn her off. What am I using today? Some grapeseed oil. It don't take much. About like so. I'd say that's spot about big around as a 50-cent piece. Lint-free rag, y'all have heard us talk about that many times. I'm going to go ahead and give it a little wiping on the outside too. In the oven, 350 degrees, it's 10:16. At 11 o'clock, I will turn it off and I'm going to let it cool to room temperature all on its own. Now, this I do periodically as to try to build that seasoning back up. Folks, this might not be the only trip it needs, but in between them trips, if you want to do something that's really going to help it out, what is that? Guess. Deep fry something. Deep fry, use some fried potatoes in there, deep fry anything, but just make sure that oil is good, high temp oil. Cast iron loves some deep frying to help it build up that seasoning. Every once in a while, if you've just been frying eggs in that thing of a morning or something, deep fry something in there. It's going to help keep that seasoning good and slick, but it's also going to help build it up. I get a lot of questions about these new companies that's making cast iron, and oh, how we love them because they are made in the USA. They say, whoa, how come they don't make a lid for this? Hey folks, if you've got another skillet or a lid off another skillet that will work, you can manufacture a lid, I promise you. Just like this one here, gonna get a little double decking action with this one right here. Hey, I'm sealing in what I got, keeping my heat in there. But one thing you gotta remember, when you pull this one up, there has been some condensation in here from being over that hot. You're going to have to dry it out, heat it up, re-season it just like you cooked out of it. So remember that. Hey, I've been out there on a 20-inch skillet on a ranch, didn't have nothing. What did I use? Tinfoil if I needed to cover something. You can always find you something to cover it up. As you can see, if Shan will come up here and look, you can see it's a little still like spotted here, there, and yonder. What are we going to do when we go back to re-season just a tad? We got to let it warm up. I'm going to go back with just about a dime size bit of grapeseed oil. Ready to go. Now I could let this cool plumb off like we said, good as gold. I could run it back through there again today. But the thing I'm going to do to it next is I'm going to deep fry me some taters in there because that's going to help it quicker than anything. But this is not a one-time fix. If you've got a lot of flaking problems going on in your cast iron, you're going to have to do this twice, 3 times. but it ain't like you can't use it. You can go ahead and use this skillet. Maybe I just got a brand new skillet, or I've had this skillet a while and my seasoning is spotted. It ain't all glossy black like you want it. Well, folks, that takes time, love, and patience. It's gonna get there. Now, if you've got one of them deals that your seasoning is coming plumb off flaking and you taste metal, hey, you need to get rid of all that seasoning in there and start over. But if you just see little spots, specks, patches here, there, and yonder that hadn't turned solid black, don't think you can't use this skillet, because using it is what it needs. All skillets are different. They're going to take a little longer to season and build up that glossy black finish from one to the next one. Clean, re-season every trip. Every time you use that skillet, I'm not talking about just going back in the oven and baking. On top of the burner every trip. I may put mine in the oven once a month, twice a month, but every time I use them, they get washed out, heated up, dried, seasoned, rubbed down with a good lint-free cloth, and then I let them cool. They're ready to hang. And why is my cast iron sticky? Now, Shannon's going to have you a link right up here because we did a video on that. Number one reason, too much oil. Maybe it wasn't hot enough when you put it in there. Just be sure and check out that link that Shannon's got up there above. It will help you fix stickiness in your life. What are your favorite oils to use? Well, first of all, I want to tell you more than anything else. If what you're using is working, don't quit. A lot of people says, hey, I want to use pure lard. My mother did for a long time. The only thing I'm telling you is if you store that rascal very long, or you put a lid on it and close that air supply, you're going to get a little rancid. Now, the oils that I love to use if I'm starting out from brand new, building that foundation, that base seasoning coat, is what? Flaxseed, grapeseed. That's the two that I think are going to perform the best. Now, if it's just every time I'm cooking after I've got a seasoned skillet well, then I just use olive oil. We hope you learned something again today. Remember, take care of that cast iron because it's taking care of you, and you can pass it down for generations to come. As Shannon's always told me, ain't nobody going to fight over Teflon in the wheel, but they will fight over cast iron. We appreciate you taking time to watch our videos. Remember what we told you. Be a good neighbor. Invite him over. Share. But also, folks, share these videos. God bless you. See you down the cast iron trail. All solid in one side or the other. Y'all hear that? That is the cast iron beagle saying, you better do a good job, folks. And he's, whoa, it is bad. What? Can you tell me what was it?
What happened?
Monsters? Burglars? What? Which is it? Huh? It was burglars?